Sometimes I'll start a sentence, and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope I find it along the way.
Welcome. You are very welcome to the Strength for Tomorrow radio show. I'm Stuart Thompson. Well, that's just my name, actually. The name that I was given at birth. I contributed absolutely nothing to it. If it's your first time listening, then do stick around. It can only get better, right? So last week we had an episode trying to help out gym newbies. So giving you the top 10 mistakes that gym newbies often make. And most of those were pretty much my mistakes that I have made whenever I was starting out. And because it's January, it's a time of year, lots of people are starting the gym afresh. They're trying to get stuck into a healthier lifestyle, which is great. And I thought we'd continue with that theme and try and help you out in another way. So this week we're going to think about gym wear, gym gear, from your shoes right up your accessories, headbands, whatever things you need and things that you do not need. This stuff can be really confusing. It can hamper your workouts and it can make them less effective and it can hurt your long-term progress. So we're going to discuss all of that in the show. So first thing is first, we're going to chat about shoes. What sort of footwear should you wear in the gym? Now, this is something that has become more relevant, I suppose, over the last couple of years since I've been training people. And what I've noticed is most people, by default, tend to opt for running shoes whenever they come into the gym. Now, running shoes are probably the most popular. Like everyone does running these days, right? Everybody's out on the street running and running around the roads, which is fine. But the problem is, whenever you go into like a Jetty Sports or Lifestyle Sports, is Lifestyle Sports even still around? I don't know. But whenever you go to the sports shop, all you will see are running shoes. You'll see thick layers of foam on the bottom of your trainers. And a lot of people just buy them because, let's face it, some of them just look really cool, don't they? They just look funky and people tend to go for those. So you've got all your kind of popular ones, your Salomons, your Asics and your some of your Nike ones that look like you're running on a brick on each foot. A soft brick, a nice foamy soft brick, but a brick nonetheless. And they can be really tempting to buy those. Now, whenever someone comes into the gym and I see them wearing those, I'm not going to go and tell you don't wear them. I'm not going to say don't wear those shoes, but I always advise you to wear the hardest soled shoes you possibly have, the firmest sole. The reason being, if you're going to try and squat or deadlift or do any sort of heavy work with those trainers on, then it's almost like trying to stand on one of those Swiss balls and doing a squat. You've got that instability and you're constantly having to correct your stance because it's so unstable. That foam is so unstable whenever you apply pressure to it, like a heavy barbell on your back or like trying to do a deadlift. So there's a few different types of shoes. We're going to run through which are most appropriate for what. Obviously running shoes are good for running, right? Makes sense. If you're doing like more like a HIIT workout, so you're doing a bit of jumping about and you're doing like maybe some more kind of gymnastics type stuff, or you're doing pull-ups, you're doing body weight activity, plus you're doing a bit of weightlifting. You're doing more like HIIT, CrossFit, any of those kind of hybrid type workouts. What you need is more like a hybrid type shoe, so things like the Reebok Nanos or the Nike Metcons, things like that, which are designed to be able to be used doing different disciplines at the one time. So you'll see people in like the CrossFit games and they'll be wearing those and be doing like heavy weightlifting, barbell training 1 second, and then they'll be doing running or something the next second. And rather than changing your footwear every 10 seconds, it probably makes sense to use a shoe that's going to be useful for both of those activities to some extent. Now, if you're doing weightlifting exclusively, weightlifting shoes are a great option for most people. They're a really good way that you can improve your lifts, and it's not even that you're improving your lifts. It's not that you're cheating. It's a bit like wearing a weightlifting belt isn't cheating. Wearing straps isn't cheating. It's a way to stop your lifts being impaired from detracting from the quality of your training. So weightlifting shoes have a few different rules. Two main rules. One of them is that they should support and protect your feet, and the other one is that it should help to recruit your quads a little bit more because of the little heel lift in them, that little bit of a rise up to the heel. Even if you're doing a low bar squat and you're trying to use the hips a bit more, getting a bit more quad into the exercise is a good idea as you lean forward. So whenever you're protecting the feet, obviously was said, if some people prefer barefoot training, which is fine, but if there's plates flying about and you want to make sure you're not going to get a barbell or a plate dropped on your foot, it's going to be sore enough if you are wearing footwear. It's going to be even worse if you're barefoot. But the other thing, you want to make sure that your arches are being supported as well and they're being protected. And a lot of good weightlifting shoes will have a metatarsal strap, so they'll have a strap that'll, like a Velcro strap, and once you've tied the laces, you pull the strap really tight around your midfoot. So that's kind of where the barbell should go whenever you're going to do a squat. It's over that strap. You want to make sure it's nice and close. It's almost like a weightlifting belt for your foot, if you want to think of it like that. It's kind of funny, but that solid kind of inflexible, rigid sole of your shoe is what's going to keep you nice and close to the ground. It's going to create a good bit of interaction. It's going to create stability, and whenever you're trying to do a lift, that stability means an awful lot. So whenever you're doing a squat, whenever you're doing a deadlift or anything even a bit higher off the ground, like a press, a jerk or a snatch, that stability, you're going to notice it. So the heels are going to, whenever you have a heel, it's going to generate a little bit of an angle for your ankle, that makes your shin travel forward a little bit more. So that adds that little bit of extra knee angle, and that helps you recruit your quads a little bit better, even if you are trying to use the hips a little bit more in your squat. So different types of body shapes are going to benefit from different types of weightlifting shoes. And I don't want to get into too much technicality here because this could go down a rabbit hole where we're talking about this for half an hour. But flat shoes generally are more useful for people with shorter tibias and longer femurs. So they're already going to tend to push their knees forward because their longer femurs just tend to do that. If you have used like a moderate type heel, so maybe like 1/2 inch height, it's going to be more useful for if you've got normal kind of anthropometry, so you're going to be able to use the quads anyway. It doesn't really matter. And then a really tall heel, it's probably better for someone who's got shorter femurs, longer tibias, that sort of thing. And you're going to be able to use the leg muscles a little bit more. But lifting shoes, whatever variety or whatever mode you choose, are a really good option if you're lifting weights. Aside from that, things like Vans or Converse, you can't afford to buy a pair of weightlifting shoes if you're thinking, I'm just going to try weightlifting, I'm not going to get seriously into it or anything, just want to try it. But if you are going to be doing weightlifting for more than a year, you're planning on doing it for the rest of your life, I would invest in a good pair of lifters, and they'll do your day. You know what I mean? You're going to do a long time. They're pretty good quality. You can get a good pair for anything from 80 to 90, 100 pounds upwards to whatever, but you can get a good pair for in around 80, 90 pounds. Things like Vans or Converse are probably not a bad option if you literally don't want to go out and buy anything else. Vans and Converse are quite good. I maybe prefer Vans because they tend to be a wider toe box, tends to be a wider sole on them, so it means you can spread your toes a bit wider. You can get a better feel of the floor, you can spread your toes. And again, it's all about stability, creating that stability right from your connection to the ground. So there's only your feet really between you and the ground, so you want to make sure that interaction is as high quality as possible. Converse are fine as well. They're quite flat, quite rigid, but they tend to be a little bit narrower, so if you've got wider feet like me, not the best option. Right, so what about wearing socks? First of all, should you wear socks to the gym? I'm going to say yes, just because it's a bit weird, isn't it? It's a weird wearing shoes, trainers, anything without socks on. I just know it feels weird. If you're going barefoot, sweet. If you want to work out in your gym barefoot and your gym allows you to do that, cool. If you want to do that in cross-functional fitness, you're more than welcome. At this time of the year, it is particularly cold, so your toes might drop off, but you're more than welcome to. I know Kate likes doing that. There's a few other people have asked me about it as well. The floor is black rubber, so your feet might be a little black afterwards. Doesn't matter how much we clean it, guys. It's still going to be black. It's still going to give off a little bit. But yeah, I would recommend wearing socks, especially if you're wearing shoes. Like we've already discussed, what type of shoes, doesn't really matter. You still probably need to wear socks inside them just so it doesn't feel odd. So it doesn't matter if you wear ankle socks, regular socks, long socks. It really does depend on what you're doing. So if you're doing a mixture of stuff, say you're doing HIIT or you're doing just cardio like the row machine or treadmill or whatever it is you're doing, then not really. Whatever feels comfortable, really. If you're doing something like deadlifting, cleaning, I don't mean cleaning as in like scrubbing and hygiene. I mean like cleans, like power cleans, squat cleans, and snatches. Then it's probably a good idea to have some long socks on, especially if you're wearing shorts. So things like rugby socks or football, rugby, football, those sort of socks. You want something that's going to cover your shins. Um, but what you don't want to do, the reason being is you don't want to cut your shins, you don't want to bruise them, and you don't want to get blood all over the gym floor or the barbell because, just saying, like the only bad color as well that you can wear is probably white, because white socks never stay white, right? If you know a trick to keep your white socks white, do let me know. I'd be really interested in that. But yeah, try not to wear white socks because they just look really grubby really quickly. And that's just my bit of my fashion advice there. So then, moving on up, the human body, the human anatomy, the shorts and leggings, or shorts or leggings. You can get leggings for guys and girls. Mostly it is girls who wear leggings. It's not exclusively girls, but I've got some leggings. I don't really wear them very often. Tried them a few times. Looks stupid in them. I wore shorts over the top of them just in case you're concerned and you've got a terrible image in your head. But yeah, shorts. So first of all, some important considerations whenever you're choosing a pair of shorts for the gym. You want to make sure they're stretchy enough, they're flexible enough, they're long enough, and that they're going to allow you to squat. That's the main consideration when it comes to picking shorts, is you're going to be able to squat properly, you're going to be able to move around, they're not going to be too heavy. You don't want them too long, you don't want them too short, you want them kind of intermediate length. Again, it's all about personal comfort. I'm not going to give you hard and fast rules here and you must wear this type of short. I like board shorts. They feel comfy, they let me squat well. I've always worn board shorts in the last sort of nearly 10 years. I love wearing them to the gym. They just feel good. Now, not the really long ones, don't have to be past your knee or anything, but a little bit higher than knee length, and yeah, they just work well. If you're a girl, again, personal preference, see what you prefer. Some girls prefer shorter ones, some girls prefer mid-length, some people prefer like cycling short type things as well. So there's no hard and fast rule. It really is personal comfort, what you feel comfortable wearing and what you feel confident wearing as well. When it comes to leggings, the main thing probably for girls is just make sure they're not see-through. Make sure they're good thick leggings, and again, comfort. I keep stressing it, but comfort. What you feel comfortable in, you will feel confident in. So wear whatever you feel comfortable and confident in, and just there's no practical drawbacks from it as well. So what about a t-shirt or a vest or a wife beater? Are you allowed to say wife beater these days? It's probably not the most politically correct phrase, but you know what I mean. It's like a vest thing, right? There's really not an awful lot to say when it comes to choosing t-shirts. There's not an awful lot of advice other than practical. Like, I would say just make sure it's clean, make sure it's not stinking, make sure you've washed it, make sure it's flexible enough to lift. So if you're, for example, if you're doing overhead presses and you get really tight around the armpits, or it's really like restrictive around your shoulders, that's not gonna go well. Same with bench press. Same with getting in your arms and shoulders into position for a squat. It's just making sure your arms look good in it. I suppose you want it. It's just going to show off your arms. If you've got good arms. I would say that cotton is the best option because it's really breathable and it doesn't stink as easily as like the likes of nylon and sometimes football tops. They're just stinking. Whenever I see them, I just think that must be stinking. I've tried wearing them before, and even playing football, I can't stand playing football in like a nylon top. They just smell so quickly, and it doesn't matter how much you shower. Like if you're in a room full of guys wearing nylon tops, they're gonna stink so quickly. So I would say, yeah, get something breathable. Sometimes that's why like a V-neck, like a wife beater or vest is quite a good option because you've got you've no restrictions in your shoulders and you're able to get your arms overhead without too much hassle and nothing holding you back from that. So there's not a lot to say on t-shirts apart from choose your favorite color. I don't know, whatever color gets you in the mood. There was a theory. A client had a theory recently that the color really can help your weightlifting ability. So if you pick a bright color, it can cheer you up, it can motivate you, it can get you in the zone for lifting. So yeah, give that a go and let me know how it goes. I have absolutely no idea. So I was going to talk about sports bras, but I realised that I'm well out of my depth. And just for the record, I've never worn one, and any rumours to the contrary are untrue, completely unfounded. But basically, if you're a lady, it's probably advisable to wear a sports bra, and it's not a mandate. I'm not mandating that. I'm not Boris Johnson. But if you show up to my gym and you're not wearing one, I'm not going to check at the door, and neither is anybody else. If you go to a gym, by the way, and they do check, and they check for something like that, that's not normal, and you should know that you've probably got a potential court case there. Maybe contact a solicitor or the police or somebody. Okay, basically, you should probably wear a sports bra. Apparently, they feel great whenever you work out. I can't verify this, as I've said, but I'm just going to go by what I've been told by reliable sources. I imagine it's a bit like compression shorts, but for up top. I've worn them before, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Compression shorts or compression tops. I'm a really big fan of compression shorts, I have to say. They feel great whenever you're squatting or doing any weights, really. Anything that requires a squat or a lunge or anything that's going to require your hips to move. Basically, why they're so great, I think this is why they're so great. Basically, your nether regions are where you will sweat the most. Okay? Let's just accept that. Let's just get that out of the way and say that out loud. That's what happens. That's what happens. And you can't really stop it. But if you're wearing something like normal boxer shorts made of cotton, then they get moist. Some people hate that word moist. I'm not particularly fond of it in this context either, but it just gets nasty down there, and your shorts are feeling a bit heavy, and it just does not feel pleasant against your skin. All that damp material against your skin, it's not nice. It's unpleasant. It's distracting. But with compression shorts, you will have absolutely no such problems. You'll actually forget you're wearing underwear, which is that's the dream, right? It's the dream. So compression tops, they're fine as well, especially if you're working out somewhere that's really cold. So if you're outside or if you're in a cold gym, then that it's a bit like a base layer, but it just keeps you a little bit warmer and gives it a little bit more heat around your joints. But again, it doesn't feel as bad. But I think compression shorts, I think they're a level above. They just feel so good. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend you try it. Do wear other shorts over the top of them, otherwise it looks like you're in speedos and you're called Tog Man or something. I know they're longer than togs, but there's that kind of you're leaving nothing to the imagination kind of idea. What about headbands? For guys or girls, I mean, let's not discriminate. It's a bit of a controversial one, actually. I remember chatting to Kyle Gregg, a former guest on the show. You should look up that episode, by the way. It's good fun. It's quite long. Set yourself aside some time, get a cup of tea ready, maybe go to the toilet before you listen to it. But headbands, I'm going to say they're optional. They're not essential. If you're a sweater, so if you're someone who sweats a lot, I don't mean like a jumper, if you sweat a lot profusely, they're probably a good idea because it's going to help stop the sweat getting into your eyes and running down everywhere. It's going to stop it, maybe even just just getting acne and stuff as well. It's going to collect all that sweat in there. Just make sure you wash it, is what I would say. But yeah, sweatbands, headbands are optional. Don't tell Kyle I said that. Next, we're going to start chatting about some accessory equipment. One of them, I guess, a towel could fit into that category. Do you bring a towel to the gym? If you don't, you maybe should. Again, if you're a sweater, you almost definitely should. If you sweat profusely, it's great to have a towel just to keep it under control, to make sure you're not dripping all over the place. And on the topic of sweating, I'm going to go on a rant here. It's really not something to be embarrassed about or to apologise for. The amount of people who kind of apologise for sweating in my gym, and I'm like, it's fine, it's cool. Like, this is where you're supposed to sweat. Like, you're not supposed to sweat when you're, on a night out and you get some pictures and selfies together and you're all sweaty. That's a bit more embarrassing. I think sweating in the gym is normal. It's healthy. There's all sorts of benefits coming from sweating. So the gym is for sweating in. Your gym clothes are for sweating in, just as long as you wash them. But having said that, before COVID was even invented or heard tell of, gym etiquette always suggests that you should clean up your sweat. That you should, if you sweat on a bench, clean it up. It's not that complicated. Basic manners, basic hygiene. And I guess the same as for coughs and sneezes. If you are a normal human, a normal human reaction to dust is sometimes to cough or to sneeze. It's quite normal. It's always been normal. And basic human etiquette, basic manners say, excuse me, and you cover your mouth, cover your nose, But again, sorry, I'm going a bit of a rant there, but back to the topic. You might want to consider bringing a towel so that you don't have to clean up all the sweat, or you don't have to spend as much time cleaning it up. You know, if you've dripped everywhere, you're going around the gym trying to dab up with blue roll all these bits of sweat. If you keep a towel close by, just give yourself a wee going over with it. And if you've got long hair, guys, girls, just a towel's a really good option because it's going to stop your hair from getting absolutely saturated. Just if you keep it under control, around your brow, around the back of your neck and everything, it's going to stop your hair getting as soaked as well. Just soak up all that moisture on it, and then it's less likely that it's going to get into your hair, and it'll mean that you'll not have to wash your hair all the time. Because it's probably not practical to wash your hair every day, is it? Maybe it is, I don't know. I wouldn't do it. So some gyms will provide you with chalk, and unfortunately many do not. Especially the more commercial, squeaky clean, aesthetically pleasing gyms that really focus on just like the looks and aesthetics of things rather than the practical implications. They probably won't provide you with any. And maybe some of the gyms, a lot of the gyms that actually used to provide you with chalk have now decided not to because of all the COVID hysteria, which is a shame. Let's face it, unless you're dipping your fingers into the chalk bucket and then licking it off like a bit of sherbet. It's called sherbet, isn't it? It's not sherbet. Sherbet. Then you're really unlikely to get COVID. Like, it's not going to happen. And, even if you are, like, snorting it like lines of cocaine, you're still unlikely to get COVID from it. And that's been shown over the last couple of years. There's been studies done on how likely you are to get COVID from touching surfaces and COVID being on surfaces, I should say. And obviously I didn't use examples like mine, but it's even less likely to get it from something like chalk, which is an unstable surface. If it's a solid surface, it's more likely that it's going to stay there. Certain conditions are going to mean it survives a little bit longer. Certain conditions are going to mean it's going to survive a little less time. But anyway, I digress. Stop putting alcohol in your hands so much as well. It's not good for your skin. But if your gym doesn't provide any chalk, just buy some for yourself and take it with you. Liquid chalk, I'm going to say, is probably the best one to go for. It'll make less of a mess of your gym bag, and some of them contain sanitizer if that's something you're particularly still a little bit superstitious about. Or if you live in the Mourne area, you can come to Cross Functional Fitness where we can provide you with chalk. Just a little bit of shameless promotion thrown in there at the end. But why do you need chalk? Chalk is great because it dries up the moisture, absorbs the moisture in your hands. It means that you can lift heavier. It means that you can do a deadlift better. You can do pull-ups better. You can basically you can do things without worrying about the moisture in your hands impairing your performance. So chalk, it's been around in gyms for years. You see gymnasts use it, you see powerlifters use it, but the everyday lifter, I think it's really beneficial for you to use it because it just takes away the excuses, doesn't it? People saying, my hands are slippy, my hands are moist. Put the chalk on. Problem solved. So simple, so effective. It really, it's a no-brainer. What about gloves? What is my policy in gloves? I used to actually provide some gloves for my early clients, and I thought it was quite a nice gesture, and because a lot of people did complain about one, the bars being cold, number two, their hands getting sore in the bars. Personally, I think they're unnecessary. Unless your hands are really cold, I can see a good idea to your hands get warmed up, stick on a pair of gloves. But I think they are detrimental. I would say they are detrimental to lifting rather than helpful. Obviously, if you're out for a run or a cycle, I think gloves can be a great idea because your hands can get freezing. My hands and my feet tend to be the places that I would get coldest, and it means that if your gym is cold, if your gym is is more like a gym and less like an office, then in that the temperature is a little bit cooler, then the bar is probably going to be cold as well. So gloves might seem like a good idea, but even see if you get like really grippy gloves, like even like the gardener type gloves, you might think, oh, they're going to be really helpful. They're much less helpful than you might think. It also doesn't help you to develop skin toughness or calluses, which they will help you long term. I know everyone's like, oh, I don't want calluses, especially girls. I don't want calluses in their hands. I don't want manly hands. Your hands won't become manly; they can become good lifting hands. But you can also just, like you would file down the hard dead skin on your feet. I know you do that. Don't pretend you don't. You can do that with your hands as well. Maybe just use a separate instrument because you don't want your dead foot skin on your dead hand skin, do you? It's kind of gross. Probably. Anyway, if calluses really upset you, that's something that you can do. So just file it down, if that's what you want to do. But anyway, wear gloves if you want to. It's none of my business, but I just wouldn't advise them. So weightlifting belts are an interesting topic. We could probably take all day talking about it. We definitely take a whole show talking about it. It can be a controversial one. Some people have certain opinions about weightlifting belts, and other people have other ideas about it. Some people think that it is useful as a support for their back. So the way a lot of people think the weightlifting belt works is that it supports your spine. So typically someone will do deadlifts, their back will start getting a bit achy, they'll start getting a bit of pressure in their spine and their deadlifting, and they'll think, oh, I think I need to use a belt. Back's feeling a bit achy. The belt will help support it. I'll put a belt on. The problem is that quite often, if your back's starting to get achy when you're deadlifting, especially if you're a novice, if you're not used to lifting, you haven't much experience of lifting what's heavy and what's not heavy, then you could be masking a big problem. You could be masking a problem with your bracing technique, with your technique, as in where you position the bar, what muscles you're using, all sorts of different ways. There could be a million things causing your back to get a bit achy and a bit too much pressure through it whenever you're deadlifting. So sticking on a belt can only mask that problem sometimes. So I would advise caution if you're a novice about using a belt. It's best to learn how to brace properly. You know, what you're trying to do whenever you do deadlifts is you're trying to create tension through your lumbar spine. Okay, so all the muscle around your lumbar spine you want to switch on, basically those deeper core muscles. So it's not just your abs, it's not just your six-pack muscles, it's not breathing in, sucking in and trying to make your waist really skinny and really thin. I know in certain disciplines like Pilates, maybe yoga as well, but whenever you do Pilates, you suck in and try and pull everything up and in whenever you are told to brace your core. This is the exact opposite of what we want to do whenever we're lifting with a belt. The way a weightlifting belt works, this is how I think of it, is it's a feedback loop. Okay, it's not much more than that, and if you get into all the technicalities of it, okay, it is more than that, but for the simple-minded among us, like me, it's a feedback loop. So whenever you brace your core, you're trying to expand all that muscle at the front, at the sides, and at the back of your torso. You're trying to push out. So a good little trick to do this is to put your thumbs underneath your bottom ribs, either side of your body, and breathe in. So that whenever you breathe in, lungs in, take in all that air, and you push your diaphragm down. So whenever you do that, you want to expand outwards. So push your tummy out, push your out the sides, out the back. You're trying to make your belly as big as possible, basically. This is the one time in life, I say it all the time, you want to have a big belly. You want a huge belly. The bigger the better. So whenever you put a belt on, you shouldn't be sucking in and then putting it on. You want to make sure you're putting it on just so it's snug to you, so it's tight to you, but it's not cutting off your breathing. You're not having to suck in to get it tight, just so it's snug. So whenever you brace your core to do a squat or deadlift or something heavy, you're expanding out against that, and that creates a feedback loop. So you get lots of intra-abdominal pressure whenever you do that. And whenever you stick on a weightlifting belt, it actually increases that intra-abdominal pressure by over 40%. That's huge, isn't it? That's absolutely huge. And does that mean that your weights go up by extra 40%? Probably not as much as that, but maybe it helps. You probably shouldn't be testing that much anyway. But whenever you do that and you create all that extra intra-abdominal pressure, what it does then, the compression in your lower back, in your discs, in your lumbar spine, it decreases by up to 50%. So that the compression through your lower back decreases by up to 50%, which is a crazy amount. So this leads to an enormous amount of pressure being reduced on your lower back. So suddenly your back won't feel like it's about to get pulled out of position. And it's not always because of the belt. As I said, the belt should not be supporting your spine. The belt, it's supporting your core muscles, not just your abs. Your abs are one part of it. That's the visible part we can kind of see. Your six-pack muscles. Some of us can see your six-pack muscles, some of us can't. But whenever you expand out again, it's not just your abs, okay? I can't stress that enough. It's the muscles, right? That your core involves a circle, okay? It's right round your torso. It's not just at the front, your visible abs. It's all the muscle, deeper muscles right round the middle. So back, sides, and front. So all that increased abdominal pressure, that's what supports your spine. Okay, all that core muscle that you switch on, and all that muscle belly that you switch on, that helps you to move the heavy weight, and that's how your body reacts to the belt. So it provides feedback and lets you know how tight you are. If you're not using the belt, sometimes you can think to yourself, "Oh, I'm 100%, I'm tight now. I'm 100% tight." You've done everything correct, but whenever you stick a belt on, you suddenly realize very, very quickly in this feedback loop that's going on, constant feedback loop, it's suddenly telling you you're not as tight as you thought you were. You're actually only 70%. You need to tighten it even more, and that's really beneficial in helping your spine stay in a safe position, a safe space, a safe shape, I should say. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Do you get what I mean, though? Whenever it comes to belt, there's a few different types. So you've got like your kind of belt buckle one. You've got your quick release one as well. Both are fine, both are grand. I quite like the quick release one just because after you've done a heavy set, you can just get out of it and you don't have to, you can actually just leave it on you and you don't have to keep it the same tension all the time. So whenever you're resting, you can just unleash it and it's still on you, but you don't have to take it on and off. There's going to be a bit of a handling sometimes. Other thing, you kind of want a good thick belt. You don't want to go cheap on it. You want to get a good, hard, durable belt, especially for something like a deadlift. You want to make sure that you've got a lot of rigidness to your belt. Another important point to make is they generally come in a 4-inch height. Okay, so 4 inches is just the standard one that they come in. The problem is we're all different heights. So if you're 5 foot, I'm 6'2", somebody else is 6'8". The distance between the top of our pelvic bone and our bottom rib is not the same. We're all going to have a different distance there. There's going to be a few inches difference maybe. So having the same depth of belt is a problem. You want to make sure that you are getting a belt that is going to be suitable for you. Like for me, I feel really comfortable with a 3-inch belt. Someone else who's a bit taller than me might feel more comfortable with a 4-inch belt. The taller the belt, the deeper the belt is, the better is not the case. Okay, you want to make sure that you are getting a belt that's appropriate for you. Otherwise, what can happen is you can start getting those intercostal muscles in your ribs in between there. You can get things damaged because it's squishing you. Whenever you lean over in your squat, it's going to squish you. Whenever you do a deadlift and you get in position, it can be digging into your top of your pelvic bone, and that's not cool. It's not nice. It feels awful if you've ever had that happen to you. So do get a belt that will suit you. I have a few 3-inch ones here in the gym. I've got a few 4-inch ones. 3-inch one is what most people should be using unless you're like 6'6" or 6'8", or you have a huge distance between your bottom rib and the top of your pelvis. Strength Shop, I don't know why I'm name dropping here. They don't pay me. They don't give me any cut. But Strength Shop is a good place to get a 3-inch belt. It's very hard to get a 3-inch belt. It's actually really annoying because most people should be using a 3-inch belt or maybe even a 2-inch belt if you're a bit shorter. But we all have to put up with a 4-inch belt. But anyway, also don't go for the Velcro belts. They're a load of rubbish. They really don't serve much of a purpose at all. Maybe some people can figure out a purpose for them. I've yet to figure out a purpose for them. But yeah, go for a good hard, good thick rigid belt. Probably 3-inch if you're 90% of the population. What about smelling salts? Now, maybe you've seen somebody else in the gym using smelling salts. You're wondering, should you use smelling salts? Are they necessary? Do you need them? What is the point of them? Now, traditionally they're used to bring people around. They've been used for probably hundreds of years to revive people after they've passed out or something. The active ingredient in smelling salts is ammonia. So whenever you sniff them, you're sniffing a little bit of ammonia in gas form. And this is a quote from the National Institute of Health, which is an American organization. Whenever you inhale ammonia gas, it basically irritates the membranes of your nose and lungs, triggers inhalation reflex, and that alters the pattern of breathing, resulting in improved respiratory flow rates and possibly alertness. So it all happens pretty quickly. Whenever you try it, it feels like your eyes maybe start watering up. It feels like you might want to cough a little bit. It feels like it's gone right up into your brain. If you've ever tried it, it's a funny sensation. It really is a crazy sensation, but it lasts less than a minute. And whenever you do that, there's like an involuntary reflex. It's an inhalation reflex, and that whenever you whiff it, it causes your breathing rate to actually increase really quickly, causes your heart rate to go up. It causes your sympathetic nervous system to kick in. So your sympathetic nervous system, it's like the physiological pathway that your body uses to manage stress, to manage stressful things. So whenever you try and do like a heavy deadlift or a heavy squat, it's like a fight or flight situation. That response is turned on. So then hormones like adrenaline, they start getting pumped through to make you more alert, more focused, and your motor skills like running or lifting just become heightened. So those things get enhanced. So that's why people use smelling salts. Do you need them? They're not essential. I wouldn't say they're essential. If you don't have it in your kit, you don't bring it to the gym. Don't worry about it. But I've tried it. The set lasts less than a minute. I can tell you, whenever you go to bed that night, I can still smell ammonia up my nose. It's a funny feeling. It's a funny smell. But give it a go. It's not the worst thing in the world. But don't take too much of it, or you will severely regret it. But yeah, it's a funny feeling, and you see it in competitions all the time, powerlifting, strongman, etc., etc. It's interesting. So wrist straps are another item you might have seen somebody else use in the gym, and you're wondering, do I need to get a pair of them? So in really simple terms, what are wrist straps? So they're basically pieces of cloth, leather, sometimes you use seatbelt material to loop around your wrist and attach to the bar. And the point of it is to make it easier to hold on to a really heavy weight. They're used by bodybuilders, used by casual gym goers, powerlifters, and they can really, really be helpful for other things like strongmen as well. Are they cheating? Some people avoid using straps because they think that it's cheating. I used to think this. I avoided using them. I actually still don't like using them. I prefer, maybe I'm just not strong enough yet to need to use them properly, but my grip is pretty good. But there's some competitions like powerlifting where it's actually not allowed. You're not allowed to have straps on because that's like equipped or it's like assisted, and you need to be able to hold on to the weight yourself. Strongman, you are allowed to use it. So what is the point of it? Is it cheating? Well, you got to ask yourself, what are you trying to train? Are you trying to train your grip for whatever reason, or is that the main purpose of your deadlifting? Is that why you're trying to get stronger, or are you trying to get stronger back, get stronger legs, stronger hamstrings, stronger glutes, quads? What is the point of your training? Are you trying to put on size, trying to put on mass? The point of it is that you are going to fail somewhere. So one of your muscle groups is going to start failing, and if it happens to be your grip, then aside from trying to improve your grip, which can be a long process by doing farmers walks, doing some of those grip exercises, then the little handles you can get and trying to squeeze those tight, trying to do pull-ups, all sorts of different things. There's lots of different ways you can try and improve your grip, but aside from doing those, sometimes just sticking on some straps are a really good way to actually help you to lift a little bit heavier and mean that you can put more stress on your muscles and you can continue to grow and continue to get stronger. So there's lots of different ones you can go for. Some loop ones you can buy, they're pretty quick to put on and take off. So all ones you have to wrap around and a bit harder to set up, a bit more technical. Some people actually just cut a bit of seat belt. They go to like a scrapyard, get seat belt, cut it about 8 inches. That should be long enough, and just wrap it around. And yeah, they seem to work pretty well. But yeah, it's up to you. I wouldn't say they're essential. If you're a novice, they're probably almost definitely not essential. There's lots of things you can do before you need to use straps, like using mixed grip, using chalk, just again training your grip, trying to get grip stronger. For females, your grip's probably going to give out quicker than males. If you're a farmer, you've already got a competitive advantage there. So they're not essential, and especially not just starting out in the gym. So what about knee wraps? There are some advantages to wearing knee wraps, and it really does come down to what your goal is. What is it you're trying to achieve? And most of the time, if you're a competitive lifter, if you're trying to lift heavier weights, that's your main goal, is just to lift heavier and heavier and heavier. There's a bit of a trade-off here. So some advantages of using knee wraps is, one, they can help prevent injury. So people think. They kind of act as like a reinforced set of tendons, if you want to think of it like that, and they try to protect the knee joint during the squat. So whenever you're squatting, it kind of gives you that enhanced explosive power whenever you're trying to come up out of the bottom of the squat. So in other words, they're basically trying to keep everything nice and tight and in place, so keep that stability in the knee, and to keep the knee joint warm. That's one of the biggest reasons I can see it, and the biggest advantages to wearing any sort of covering over the knee is the actual heat in your joint. It just feels better. Your joints feel better when they're warm, and they're going to be better lubricated as well then with synovial fluid. A lot of times your knee in the winter, you might feel it getting a bit achy or a bit creaky. It's a lot of times because it's cold. If you can warm them up and warm up that joint, it's going to feel immediately a lot better. Another advantage of lifting with wraps around your knees is that you're gonna be able to lift more weight. Essentially, whenever you tightly wrap those wraps around your knees with the legs straight, the joint is kind of locked in that angle. So whenever you bend your knees, your legs, the knees want to spring back into position, and this basically helps you to lift more weight. There's a little bit of a spring, as I said, out of the bottom, and the amount of this assistance, it's going to really depend upon what type of wrap you use, how thick it is, what sort of quality it is of, and then how tightly you wrap it as well. So like a really tight powerlifting type knee wrap, it could add maybe 20 to 30 more kilos to your lift, and in some cases maybe even more, which is kind of crazy. But having said all that, there are disadvantages to wrapping your knees. If you're going to do squats and deadlifts, the main reason most people do it, I would imagine, is to get stronger. Okay, you want to strengthen your muscles around the knee joints, your quads, your hamstrings. You want to strengthen those. So, but the problem is whenever you wrap your knees with lots of straps, and then what you're doing is you're kind of reducing that workload of the muscles, by putting the wraps around it. So you're kind of whenever you wear knee wraps, it's almost defeating the purpose to some extent of the exercise, because if you're able to lift more weight, you want to be doing it as a result of your legs getting stronger, if your core getting stronger, not because you've kind of strengthened your knees with the wraps. So if you're trying to get, say you're squatting to make your knees feel better, you're possibly doing yourself more harm than good, because you're almost hindering that development of the tendons and ligaments around your knee. So you can almost become dependent on it. That's a real worry. So whenever you start becoming dependent on it, and then as you start increasing the weights, your tendons and ligaments should also get stronger along with your muscles. But if you're wrapping up too much too often, your knees are not going to feel the need to get stronger, because they're going to always feel that support from the straps. So there is some evidence that really tight knee wraps are detrimental to the knees. It's not what you want. Now, as I said, I think they're a really good option for most people, just to get a bit of heat in your knees if you work out in a colder gym, a colder environment, especially in the winter time. Just having that bit of heat around your joint is gonna feel a lot better for it, and it's gonna move and flex an awful lot better. So some things to consider there. I'm not going to advocate for or against it, but you've kind of heard both sides of the argument, advantages, disadvantages, and you can kind of make your own mind up. So what about wrist supports and elbow supports, things like that? Should you use them or not? It's probably a similar debate with the knee straps, knee wraps. You probably need to weigh up what you're training for. What is your purpose with your training? Is it to get stronger joints? Because if you're just squatting just to get numbers on the board and you're a competitive lifter or something, you maybe do want to consider it. But if you're squatting and you're bench pressing, you're doing all these things to try and strengthen your joints and your ligaments, tendons, as well as your muscles, then you probably need to lay off the supports. Now, having said that, there probably is a time and a place for it, but for novices, I'm gonna say no. I don't think there's any need for it. As you get more advanced and you learn how to use these tools more effectively, then they probably are a good idea to introduce at some extent. But if you can't stabilize your wrist with whatever weight you're bench pressing with or overhead pressing with, you're probably gonna do more harm than good if you start wrapping them up and strapping them and putting supports around them. And same with the elbows. A lot of time people do it if they get an injury and they put a support on it, but it's probably the injury maybe happened because there's a breakdown in technique. There's something not right there in your shoulder or somewhere else, and that's what's led to that ache in your elbow. and wrapping it up and putting a support on it is probably not going to do any good until you address that technical issue that's going on, that mobility issue perhaps, or you just let the injury, if that's what it is, to heal up. So yeah, the jury's still out. I'm not as convinced about things like that. I think yes, they can help if you're in a competitive setting. It makes sense, perfect sense to wear one. But if you are just a leisurely gym goer and you're doing things for optimal health, I'd probably say no. I'm probably going to say no.
Is math related to science?
Okay, it's time for our news of the week segment, and this week's one is from New Scientist. Now, there's an awful lot of garbage in New Scientist, let's be honest. I mean, most of it's garbage, but there's one interesting story this week. It's from the 26th of January, which is just a few days ago, and it's called Vitamin D Supplements Really Do Reduce the Risk of Autoimmune Disease. Even the title of it is kind of clickbait, isn't it? Vitamin D supplements really do, as if, like, you know, people saying that they don't before, or it's just one of those things that you would say out loud, but writing it looks funny. So it has long been suspected that vitamin D could help reduce the risk of developing an autoimmune disease, and now we have evidence that this is the case, at least for people over 50. I'm not sure why it's not the case for people over 40, people 49, but apparently if you're over 50, once you hit that magic number. So vitamin D supplements really do prevent people from developing an autoimmune disease, at least for those over 50, in a study providing the first evidence of a causal link between the two. Previous studies on the effect of vitamin D on autoimmune conditions have looked at vitamin D levels in those with an autoimmune disease or those who go on to develop one. Other studies have hinted at the supplement's beneficial effects on the immune system. We know vitamin D does all kinds of wonderful things for the immune system in animal studies, says Karen Kostenbader at the Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston. But we have never proven before that giving vitamin D can prevent autoimmune disease. Kostenbader and her colleagues randomly split nearly 26,000 people in the US who were 50 or over into two groups, giving them either vitamin D supplements or a placebo. Really does my head whenever people give them placebos. Placebos, like, why? Just why? Look at the actual physical benefits. Like, I know placebo is important, but like there was an article recently saying about how a lot of the COVID vaccinations, that the negative side effects like headaches and fatigue were caused by nocebo. They called it a nocebo, so they got a no beneficial placebo effect from it, so they called it a nocebo. But they don't like display the benefits of placebo from the vaccine either. But that's a different topic. It'd be nice to have equal reporting on the findings of that. So Kostenbader says the great thing about randomized trials is they really answer the question of causation. The team tracked the participants for around 5 years to measure the development of autoimmune conditions, including rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune thyroid disease, and psoriasis. This revealed that a dose of 2,000 international units, IU. Do you ever wonder what that was called? IU on vitamins? I only found that out a few months back. It's not very interesting, but anyway. So 2,000 IU of vitamin D per day reduced the development of autoimmune disease by 22% compared with the placebo. This is a larger dose than the standard 400 IU recommended by health organisations such as the UK's Department of Health and Social Care. By the way, I'm not sure if I mentioned this recently on a podcast, but I've been telling everybody, shouting it from the rooftops, the people I've met. I'm reading a great book at the minute called The Mineral Fix, and it's making the point that the recommended amounts of vitamins and minerals, that is not the optimal amount. They're two different things. Okay, so if you're given an X amount to take of vitamin C, this is the recommended amount of vitamin C per day. That is basically the bare minimum of that vitamin that you need to stop getting scurvy and your gums and teeth falling out and rotting. Okay, that is not the optimal amount for optimal health. And this case here of vitamin D, it's saying 2,000, which is compared to 400. So it's saying 400 is the minimum you need. UK's Department of Health and Social Care. So be really careful about where you take your advice from. If you're taking your advice from certain organisations, you still have, the buck stops with you. You have to make a decision whether you should increase that amount or decrease that amount or whatever you think is optimal for your own health. I always think it's really funny how people sometimes are more fearful of overdosing on something like vitamin C than they are of painkillers, or they are of fat or sugar or salt. It's fascinating. People are like, oh, you don't want to take too many vitamins. Taking too many vitamins is bad for you as well, you know. And it's as if, like, Yeah, but there's other things that are worse that we take too much of. Like, we take too much sugar all the time. We just do. We take too many calories all the time. There are lots of things that we take too much alcohol. We take too much alcohol all the time, right? As a nation. So don't be as fearful maybe as about vitamins. There's other things that we overdose and we care not a jot about. Just a little side rant there about that one. It's unclear how vitamin D prevents autoimmune disease, but we know it is processed in the body to produce an active form that can alter the behaviour of immune cells. There are tons of potential mechanisms, says Costin Bader. It could be that vitamin D helps the immune system to distinguish between self and non-self. So that's self-normal body tissue and non-self, so such as disease-causing microbes, or it helps to decrease inflammatory responses to self. Costin Bader now advises her patients to take 2,000 international units of vitamin D a day if you are at the right age and it is safe for them to do so. However, she doesn't recommend this for everyone. You should tell your doctor if you start a supplement, she says. There could be reasons you shouldn't take them. The researchers are now extending the trial to see how long the benefits last and hope to start a new trial in younger people. I'm very excited and really quite bowled over by these results. So, my joke is invalid at the start. I said if you're 49, this study didn't count. It's just I haven't looked at it yet. So vitamin D might be, like that amount of vitamin D might be good for preventing autoimmune disease. But yeah, by the way there, just as a disclaimer, before you start a supplement, check with your doctor. But at the same time, take ownership yourself, okay? But check with your doctor. Wink, wink. Right, it's joke of the week time. So, did you know that your nose will never be 12 inches long? Because if it was, then it would be a foot. Come on, that's a good one. That's a good one.
Ha 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 ha.
And there we have it. We have reached the end of another show, episode 38 in the books. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully you've learned something about what to wear to the gym, what not to wear to the gym. Not from a fashion perspective, because if you want that sort of advice, you're at the wrong podcast. Thank you for joining me. I will catch you again next Friday, hopefully. And in the meantime, make sure you're training today so you can be stronger tomorrow. Have a good weekend.